And let me tell you this, the older you do get, the more rules are gonna try to get you to follow. You just gotta keep living, man. L-I-V-I-N.
Now, from my point of view, these vaccines are a medical miracle. Work even better than flu vaccines, done in record time. It's really astonishing, and they're our best hope of getting out of this virus disaster. So I'm with this Brisbane doctor today who's thrilled by the vaccine now being handed out here.
I woke up this morning at 3 a.m. with goosebumps. This is probably the most exciting day of my professional career. Now we're seeing what looks like the beginning of the end of this pandemic.
And I also love so many Australians now getting their shots, and I appreciated hearing, particularly from the 84-year-old woman who got hers yesterday in a PR thing with the Prime Minister, and then today saying, wow, that was easy.
I have no side effects whatsoever, no pain, no nothing. Everybody go and get it, so you'll be safe.
And I hear our experts say that the vaccines are quite safe and very effective so far. You know, some of the virus's mutations, they might not work so well against them, but some of these vaccines can actually be tweaked. Now, of course, the experts could be wrong. You know, it's always wise to bear that in mind. You know, experts have been wrong in the past, but the conspiracy theories that I get sent, I mean, just about every day, well, they're quite disturbing. The ones I read on the internet turn your hair. But they don't actually show to me at all that these experts so far are wrong. I mean, I see multiple claims saying hundreds of Americans, this is one I get quite often, hundreds of Americans have dropped dead of the vaccine within days of getting it, hours of getting it sometimes. And then I'm sent a link to a US reporting site, which is genuine. But please, I've looked at that site, and the fears are complete beat up. The claims made are nonsense. These are people just reporting any adverse event without knowing what the causation of it was. So we are talking here mostly about very old, quite often sick people who didn't die from the vaccine, but with it. Now, don't just take my word for it. This very phenomena, these very facts that I'm being sent, they've been studied hard, because wise up, no government, no doctor wants to be injecting fatal drugs to people. Are you kidding? Now, in this case, the US National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases checked after 1.3 million elderly Americans in long-term care were given a vaccine. That's a lot. That's one big test group so far. 129 of them later died. 129. They were like, it's scary. But the researchers said, in fact, this was not surprising, given how old they were and sick quite often. In fact, they said, they concluded mortality was actually lower among vaccinated versus unvaccinated residents, often within the same facilities. And it added that the data did not suggest a signal with respect to overall safety or deaths following vaccination, by which they mean we haven't got so many deaths that suddenly we're thinking this is unusual. Far from it. Same story with a study in the Journal of the American Medical Association. It said monitoring of the vaccines, it being administered right now in the US, was constant, which you would expect. And it confirmed that anaphylaxis, which is, you know, that sort of allergic shock that some people get into, very severe allergic shock, that kind of shock to the vaccine was rare. You think, with every million doses of the Pfizer vaccine, which is what we're getting here, it's partly one of the ones we're getting here, every million doses, just 4.7 cases of this shock, allergic reaction. You have an EpiPen or some other treatment on standby, we should be able to deal with that. So please, don't panic, don't freak, don't believe half, you know, these internet clouzos who think, oh, I've got the truth, they're keeping it from us, look at all these deaths. Do you seriously think if all those deaths were occurring, governments would still push on? Come on, But listen, if you're still a little unsure about the vaccine, you'd like more time to think, see what happens, fine. There are plenty of Australians in the queue. They'd love to go in front of you. And I bet you that months from now, you will wonder what the fuss was all about.
Yeah, look, that's a strong message, and it's certainly the case that that very few people get any significant reactions to these vaccines. But what a great day it is. You know, if we look back a year ago and think, would we be here starting a mass vaccination campaign with 2 approved vaccines with local manufacturing, meaning that we're guaranteed to have enough supply for every Australian. It's a great place to be, and I think all Australians are very proud of where we've got to.
Now, what percentage of the population needs to get vaccinated before we have herd immunity?
That's a number we just don't know as yet, because we don't know enough about how these vaccines prevent you actually catching the virus and spreading it to someone else. We do know they're very good at stopping you getting very sick, which is, of course, the main aim here. Keep our hospitals empty, keep people from getting more than just a mild flu. But until we know about those other things like transmission and asymptomatic infection, we're actually not going to know what the herd immunity target is. It'll be a big number, but whether it's 95% of the population or 75%, we just don't know at this stage.
Is there any evidence from other countries, Israel, the United States, anywhere else, that those things are looking good, retransmission and asymptomatic?
What we're hearing is that the vaccines are having a big impact in those countries where they're getting significant numbers out there. So they're seeing less hospitalisations. They're terrible situations that they were facing. For instance, in the UK, just a couple of months ago, it was looking like a complete disaster. Things starting to settle down, and that is as a direct result of vaccination. Now, of course, we're not in that situation here in Australia. We haven't had a death since October, so we've just got quite a different situation, but there's still a very strong push to get everybody vaccinated.
What's your read on confidence in the vaccine among Australians?
Look, I think we're seeing a large group of people that are pretty confident and will just go with the flow and get vaccinated, but a significant group who are not anti-vaxxers, who are just saying, well, this has all happened pretty quickly. I'd like to know a bit more about it. I'd like to watch what happens as it starts to roll out here in Australia. And that's okay. We've got a bit of time for people to get their heads around it. But it's really clear that the only way for us to get through this pandemic and to anything like what we used to know before as normal life, the only way is for everybody to get vaccinated.
Was it the right decision to make it non-compulsory?
I think it was the right decision. That there's really no benefit into forcing people to make decisions, and particularly when we were making these calls, we knew very little about the vaccines that could have potentially been made compulsory. So the challenge really is to sell the vaccine, to show, to gain people's confidence, and to also, I guess, remind everyone that we're not just taking the vaccine for ourselves, to protect ourselves from getting ill, but we're doing it to protect the other people, the vulnerable. There'll be some that don't mount an adequate immune response, even though they've been vaccinated, so they're still vulnerable if they're elderly, in a nursing home, whatever it is. And each of us can do our bit to help protect those people by getting ourselves vaccinated.
Now, Mr. President, I'm always asking you questions that you can't answer, but I'll try one more time. When do you anticipate life returning to normal, including overseas travel?
Look, I think full overseas travel is going to require the rest of the world to settle down, but I would hope that we could start to see a more relaxed attitude to our domestic borders towards the end of this vaccination program. So as we're heading towards October, where our premiers will know that their populations are actually protected now, they're not going to see a huge outbreak, even if something does get through. I think those domestic borders will relax. International borders, look, my guess would be sometime in 2022, but that is really just a stab in the dark.
And when will you get it?
Look, I'm going to get it as soon as I'm eligible or someone offers it to me. So, you know, there's been some whispers. Maybe you'd like to go and get vaccinated early, but no firm offers as yet. But I'll be, as a healthcare worker, in phase 1B. So I'm guessing that that's when I'll be getting it done.
I was a victim too. At least my wife was. She had friends who were socialists.
Oh my God.
Well, we all make mistakes.
What's that gun for? That's the old encouraging gun. Don't speak ill of the encouraging gun.